LLC, and we have several other divisions, Right Start Websites and Sonic Web Tech. Sonic Web Tech is primarily our focus for providing on-demand technical support to anybody who needs a little help here, a little help there. It's not designed to take you over or anything like that. It's designed for you to come in and get a little bit of help here, a little bit of help there, and buy it online. You can go in, you can buy a half hour, you can buy an hour, and get some help. We have a complete dev center where we manage your technical support, so that you're just not talking to somebody on the phone and you don't know what's going on. We have
What's
a whole
dev center?
A development center. It's kind of like a project manager of sorts. It keeps track of what we said we were going to do, and then what you need to provide for us information. It keeps track of the time.
Okay.
It logs all that in for you, and emails everybody whenever something happens. So it's kind of like a project manager. So no matter whether you've got a half hour, an hour, or 10 hours, it manages that project for you. One of the problems with getting technical support online is you send some money to somebody and then you never know what's happening. And you depend on emails or the person getting a hold of you so that you feel like you're getting screwed. Well, that's the purpose of the Dev Center, to keep you engaged, to keep us engaged, to keep us communicating, and to make sure we don't get disconnected. And so you keep track of what you're doing, what you're getting, how you're getting it, and that whole process. So it's kind of like a little more managed technical support, but still the kind of technical support that's just the right size for what you need, rather than being, you know, something really big and expensive. Keeps it nice and small. Because most of you don't need technical support all the time. You just need a little help now and then. That's the typical, you know. So that's what that's designed for. And the Right Start Websites is primarily helping you get your website up and running. For those of you who need a new one or need to upgrade or migrate to WordPress or anything like that, that's all about that. Okay, and we have, as our introductory thing, we have the free WordPress site. Well, basically, we have our own hosting system that we've had for a number of years. Rich is in charge of most of the hardware aspects of it in the background. And that hosting system is very inexpensive. If you buy yearly, it's $6 a month. If quarterly, it's $8 a month. That's pretty cheap. You can find it too much cheaper. Once in a while, GoDaddy will, or one-on-one will do a $4.85 introductory offer, but you know, you'll get back to their $9 and $10 hosting after 3 or 4 months anyway. So it's not any more expensive, and we've been doing it for a lot of years. So it's pretty well developed. And we install the WordPress site for you, and we have a whole guide that you go through that helps you get your WordPress started with videos and eBooks and all kinds of support materials, so you're not left hanging, wondering what to do next. Okay? Matter of fact, we're going to be having a workshop coming up. It's now scheduled for the end of the month, but we'll probably get pushed back because it'll be close to the holidays, where we'll take you from beginning to end of developing your website in one day. Walk you through the whole process and help you do it. Actually, sit down and help you do it. So you bring your laptop and we'll walk you right through the whole process. So that workshop is available too. And we're also developing it to be an online workshop.
And we will be there for one-on-one help, so.
Right. Anyway, today we're going to do WordPress security. And one of the problems, being prepared for disaster to come, that's because it will come. The goal of all of our seminars, we have these every single month, the second Tuesday of the month. If you go to the meetup group and go to the discussion area, you will see the videos and the ebooks. They're available for you for all the previous ones. So if you want to get kind of caught up, there's the full video, like he's doing right now, of the presentation and the ebook that goes with it. So each one of these presentations has a 22 to 27 page ebook that goes with it that I'll be posting on the meetup group so that you'll be able to download it. Okay, so, and that ebook has even more information than I could possibly cover in 45 minutes. So it's very, very in-depth. So I'm going to hopefully teach you how to fish so that you can continue on. Today's questions. I think I got hacked. Now what do I do? How do you fix it? How do you recover better next time? Because you will get hacked again someday. And can it be prevented or minimized? Well, it can be minimized, probably not totally prevented. In some cases, you may not ever get hacked just because of luck. It's like It's like putting your blindfold on and walking across the freeway and not getting hit, you know? You can be lucky. But we've been hacked a few times ourselves, so we actually had to do this stuff ourselves.
We know how to recover, and
Okay,
lessons
good
learned.
morning. You have been hacked. You get up in the morning, you go to your website, and you discover, oops, it's gone. Or it's now a porn site. Oops, or it's some other site that's not you. It has links all over to drug sites. You go down, scroll down your website, and you see all these links to drug, Viagra, you know, whatever, suddenly appearing on your website. Or you get this email from your hosting provider saying, you've used all of your storage space, we're going to shut you down. You probably are now the site of some porn industry storage space, and they're using your hosting account to store all of their files. You know, so there's any number of things that like that can happen. I can list a lot of them, but that's a couple of the nice ones. So, okay, step one. So we're going to walk through the steps of what to do when this happens to you. Step one is don't panic. Okay? Most people will do more damage at this moment than the hacker did because they panic. You got to kind of get your cool first. First, you want to make sure it's not a service interruption. I've seen cases where people thought they got hacked, but really their web hoster went down for an hour. So you got to go check and see if something happened with your web host, because that does happen.
Or they were hacked, the web
Or
host.
they were hacked. Well, I'll get to that too. Make sure it is not your internet connection, your ISP or something. So you need to stop and kind of take your cool and make sure all the wires are plugged in. Yeah, make sure, you know. There is an interesting story on that, but I won't digress. Confirm your URL, you know, make sure you haven't actually typed a typo because you haven't had your first cup of coffee yet. And now that you've checked all those things and everything looks like it's not those faults, now you want to consider your options. So that's step two. Take stock of what you're doing. If you can get into your website still, in other words, it's not the first one, it's gone, it's still there, go in and change your passwords. Go in and change your secret keys. And the ebook tells you how to do that. Okay, so I won't delve into that now because you won't remember it if I told you. But it's in the ebook, how to do that. And then you have to ask yourself if you have backups. Now, most people will say no. And that's probably your first big mistake. Okay?
Not probably, it is your first big mistake.
If so, review what you have. Okay? Because that's probably the key of your survival, is your backups. Then, make a backup of the hacked site. Because as you try to repair this, you may totally mess it up and you would like to get back to at least where you were before so you can try it again. Or if you finally discover you can't handle it, you want to hire somebody to come and do it, at least you have a backup of where you were before you started messing around. So you do want to do a backup right at that point. And then of course read the ebook. That's going to be available to you. And it goes through a whole bunch of other things.
Excuse me.
Yes?
If you have one of these backup services, how would you back up the hack site without wiping out the backup that's good?
That's why you shouldn't be using that for this particular situation. You should have a WordPress backup that backs up your WordPress site, and then you download it and put it on your computer.
And more to the point,
And they're each date stamped.
name them differently.
Yeah.
If you already have a backup and it's named My WordPress Site, name it My WordPress Site Hacked. Just be a little ingenuity and you'll be able to
If
do
you're relying
it.
on a backup service for this particular thing, that can be better than nothing. But the best thing in terms of operational is to use one of the WordPress backup plugins and back up your site internally and then download it onto your computer and save it. I'll get the backups in a minute.
Have you set that up automatically?
Yeah, I'll get to that in a minute.
Well, it says read the ebook. What's the ebook? It's
That will be,
coming up?
yeah, no, that will be posted on the site after the presentation later this week, okay? It's a complete ebook that covers all this material plus more, with examples and all that stuff,
And links.
and links, right? Okay, step 3. now you're gonna begin your restoration, okay? And you have basically 3 broad strategies to recover. The first strategy is what most people try at first. They try to do kind of a manual from their backups, or they try to get in and hack around and mess it up. Unless you're really, really an expert, that's a hard one to do, okay? Unless you really are a code jockey, okay? Probably the best thing, if you have backups, is to do a completely wipe it out and restore it from your backups. Okay, notice I keep saying backups, okay? So that is key. And the last one is if you have no backups, you're probably going to have to wipe it out and do a whole new WordPress install. Okay. Hopefully you still have the database back there so that you, when you bring it up, you'll still have the database and you apply your theme. And you could be back up fairly quickly, assuming your database isn't messed up yet.
Can you use the Wayback Machine?
Use a what?
The Wayback Machine? You know, the Wayback Machine records everything on the internet.
No. No, you do have to back it up. Yeah.
Too much data,
Because
you'd
it's on
never find
somebody
it.
else's server. It's on your hosting provider. So you need to create a backup of that and restore it. Whoop. I must have clicked something. There we go. I did click something. Like, for example, in our hosting service, we do backups how often per?
Every 4 hours?
Every 4 hours of all of our clients. Everybody's on our site with the backups. But we do it for when we screw up. Okay, if you want us to restore you, you're gonna have to hire us to take those backups and restore them, because that's not why we do it. We do it if something happens to our service. And those backups are not stored in that way, because what we do is we take that and we restore the whole system. So they're kind of all grouped together. They're not like individual little pieces. Yes.
So how often do people on your services get hacked? Is it like once a week, once a month, twice a day?
It's been a lot less than that.
It's less than that, but when it does, it's very traumatic. Yeah, I mean, you don't have to get hacked but once to have it be traumatic, you know. And we ourselves have been hacked at least once or twice a year
Yeah.
on our systems.
Probably.
But we have a lot of websites and we do a lot of stuff, so.
In hacking, is it completely random, whoever these, is it have to do with money or reputation or?
Basically what it is, you have more and more people out there that are scanning IP addresses and ports. And when they find one, they try to take advantage of it. And in terms of WordPress, there are known vulnerabilities in WordPress and themes and plugins, and we'll get to that.
Okay.
That people will scan your site for those, and when they find it, they want to take advantage of your weakness. And use your site as a porn site, use your site to store data, use your site as a relay to do something else. Basically, you're just like cattle fodder out there. And if you happen to be in the way, they get you. And if you're not, then you're safe. But you can't expect to be anonymous all the time. You will be anonymous for a while, but then if you start becoming more popular business, then because you're showing up more on Google, they're going to target you.
Yeah.
The more popular you become, the more likely. And if you're in business, you want to be popular. So,
Right.
I mean, it's kind of like a
Yeah.
double-edged sword.
Yeah,
I mean, if you want to be anonymous, you can do that.
well, no, I don't.
But you won't be in
What's
business.
the point? Yeah.
And part of the problem is that things are constantly moving and improving, so there's constant upgrades. And one of the reasons for those upgrades to your plugins, to WordPress, to your database, all that sort of thing, is because someone else has found vulnerabilities and they patched them. It's just like your Windows machine, or your Mac even. People think Macs don't have vulnerabilities. They do. And it needs to be patched, and that's an upgrade. If you leave that open, that's the open door policy, where you say, come on in, hack me.
They will come to get you, unfortunately. Okay, then after you've gone through this experience, you should need to always do a postmortem. Okay, what did I do right? What did I do wrong? And try to improve it. Develop a backup strategy, of course, is one of your first thing. And then develop a safe plugin and theme installation procedures, which I'll get into. So I'm going to get into all these little bits and pieces that I've been dropping and kind of leaving hanging here. Okay, so that's our process. Now, how did this happen? These are the areas where you're going to get hacked with relating to WordPress, okay? Malware plugins, you went out there searching on the web and you found this plugin that's gonna do miracle things for you for SEO. So you download it and you discover it was a Trojan. They just took over your website. You gotta be careful. You just don't go out there and just something, because that's how they get you to download their plugin, by making it look like it's something else. It's the whole idea behind Trojans. And we'll talk about how you can avoid that. Web server attacks, that means your web server, your hosting service got attacked. Obviously that's not your fault, but you need to be aware of it. You need to be able to communicate. You need to have a hosting service that you can talk to. If it's somebody, if you have a hosting service where you can't get somebody on the line and talk to somebody, maybe as a business you need to move, okay? Because you need to be able to talk to your hosting service and know that they're going to respond to you and tell you what's going on. Input attacks, forms and comments, which all WordPress sites have. Any place you have somebody type something in on your website, that is a vulnerability, because they can type in PHP code, and it's called an injection, and it gets executed. So your system has to be designed to handle it. And most WordPress, most things in WordPress can handle that, but there's things you can do to protect yourself even more. I'll talk about that. Plugin or theme vulnerabilities. This means there's nothing malicious about what's wrong with that plugin. It's just somebody found a weak spot. So that's where your updates are important. Okay? And then WordPress vulnerabilities, same thing. It's not a malicious sort of thing, it's just a weakness that somebody finally found and now is taking advantage of. And your protection is to always be upgrading your WordPress, because the WordPress folk community is really good about discovering and fixing these things. That's why they have a new update like almost once a month. Literally. They've got an update coming up once a month practically. So you need to be on top of that. Okay, let's talk about backdoors a minute. Backdoors is basically a way that somebody can take over your website and your hosting service and literally use your account for their own purposes. Basically, and it's the most common technique. It's the one that is used most often. Basically, it can be as simple as a one-liner code, or it can be as complex as separate files. They're oftentimes disguised, and they can literally infect your database too by stuffing data into your database, using your database as a storage, which kind of mess up your database. So these kinds of backdoors can be inserted with those vulnerabilities we looked at here. That's how these backdoors are inserted, is through these techniques. And these backdoors, I go in, again, on the ebook, I go in detail what these backdoors look like and how to find them. Basically, with something like this, you need somebody who knows what they're doing to take a look at what your site, if you suspect that's what's going on. You generally won't have to really deal with this directly if you follow the strategies that I talked about, because you're just going to restore your site and that will wipe them all out. Okay, so you really don't have to know them other than be aware of them, as long as you have a good backup policy. Okay, and you are protecting yourself in terms of keeping up to date and everything. But you should be aware of, it's kind of like knowing that your tire can get flat, and knowing that driving over nails is bad for tires, but you don't really need to be an expert on nails. You just need to know that you need to have a spare, and you need to have your tire in pretty good condition so it can handle most of those situations. If you've got a bald tire spinning down to the cord, then that nail is going to go in a lot easier. So it's just a matter of a little preventative medicine. Okay, now we're going to get into, okay, you said all this scary stuff. Now, now what do I do, okay? Security is a mindset. It's kind of like defensive driving. It's how you operate that keeps you safe. It's a mindset, not an afterthought. It's not what you do, which is what's happened to some of you, after you've got everything going and now you go, oh, okay, what about security? No, security needs to be job one. And it's the way you do business on the internet. Strategy steps. These are your 3 areas that you're going to always be aware of. You want to control and limit access to your site, except for those areas that you are consciously giving access. In other words, You want a customer to do X, then you have that, but you make sure that you know how they're doing it. It's like a customer coming into your physical store. You want to make sure that you are able to watch that customer, that they can't go walking down the aisles, putting stuff in a big bag and walking out the door. So there has to be some way to kind of monitor what's going on. So you're limiting access. Even though you're trying to make them feel free in your store, you are kind of limiting access in terms of how you watch them and monitor. Containment. You want to make sure if something bad happens, it doesn't do too much damage. Okay, you want to limit it. And the last is preparation and knowledge, and that's where having a good backup strategy, having an upgrade strategy going on all the time is going to keep you prepared. Okay, what do I need to do to be secure as a whole policy, as a whole way of operating? Your first step is to keep your computer clean. That's Rich's job. That's what Rich does. He cleans up computers, gets rid of viruses and malware, because yes, you can infect your own website. That does happen. So you have to make sure you're clean before you dress your wound. Make sure you wash your hands. You know, don't introduce the bug from yourself. Your website software, that's your WordPress site. Make sure it's in good shape. Make sure it's up to date. Make sure you've done all the things that we've talked about so far, and we'll talk about some more. Make sure you are working with your hosting provider. Make sure it's somebody that will work with you. If you were just doing this for fun, for pictures for your grandchildren or whatever, then that wouldn't be a big deal. But if you're doing it as a business, your hosting provider is your partner. Whether they or you want to admit it or not, they are your partner. And you need to be able to work with them. So you need to have a hosting partner that you can work with, who will work with you. The network. Now, you don't have a whole lot of control over that, but there is issues you can control. Like, are you on a Wi-Fi at home in which you have not locked it down, so now your neighborhood kids can get onto your network and get into your system? Maybe. So you need to make sure your networks are secure. Don't go down to Barnes & Noble and start working on your business. Bad idea, because the kid behind you is probably already on your computer, mutzing around and having a jolly good time. So be careful. Now, it's not that you can't do that, but you should have a firewall up. You should have some security. So if you do have to work in public places, you need to have your computer set up so it protects you while you're in public places. Otherwise, you're like open door policy on your computer. And I was at a conference one time, and it was a geek conference nonetheless. And I was sitting there on my laptop. Somebody was talking. I wasn't paying all that much attention to them. And I thought, I wonder who's out there amongst all these geeks that have unprotected sheets. So I turned on my little scanner thing. I discovered dozens of people right in that room who had unprotected computers. That I logged right in and walked around and looked at their hard drive. I didn't do anything, but it was no problem. It was just shocked me. I was so shocked that all these people that were supposedly know better would have their computers naked for all intents and purposes. Not a good idea. Passwords. How many of you have passwords that have some dictionary word in it, like your name, your pet's name? Bad idea.
How many of you hate passwords?
Oh yeah, you can all raise your hand. We all hate them.
Everybody hates them, but they're
You
important.
need to learn what it means to be a strong password. Go to Google and type strong password. You'll get a whole bunch of articles on how to create a strong password. Please read it and please do it. You need to have strong passwords. Strong passwords have mixed case, letters, numbers, and symbols. Okay? And they can't be actual words. Now they could kind of fake some words so you can help you remember them. Like you can substitute 5s for S's on a word and E's for 3s and things like that you are going to remember to substitute. So it's really a word that you can remember, but it doesn't look like a word. Put an exclamation point in the middle, a couple of asterisks, and there you go. You can have an indecipherable password that you can remember. Yes?
How safe are the password recording things like LastPass and those sort of things?
I don't know, you just have to see them.
Pardon?
Passwords are safe because they're mixed letters, numbers, characters, and case, and they're long enough. They have to be at least 8 characters long. That's what makes a password hard to crack.
Do people crack? I mean, I don't, what's the situation that somebody would just not know you and just be able to,
There's amazing how many people out there use typical, I mean, I saw an article that said, these are the typical top 5 passwords. And you know what one of that 5 was?
Password.
Password.
oh, I have heard, okay, but
But-
beyond that.
Beyond that, it's not people.
It's
There
machines.
are actually algorithms.
Okay.
And we see these in attacks on our websites all the
Oh, yeah.
time. It's called a dictionary attack. And they come through and they do a dictionary of all possible logins, and they do a dictionary of passwords, and if they find one
Okay,
that's...
so it's like it's an automated thing that they
It's
throw
automated.
at it, and then they just see if it sticks?
He looks at the logs, and sometimes some days we'll have log, like every second, there'll be somebody trying to log into our machine.
Right.
Okay,
And they're
okay.
hitting it with all these different logins, just bang, 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 bang.
Okay, but it's a generated,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
not
It's-
somebody.
right.
No, no.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
but
Yeah.
can't you shut the thing down after 3 attempts or something?
Not entirely, not entirely. Some firewalls will, when you attack a port, will shut the port down, but then of course then you're out of business. So you have to balance things, because if you're too aggressive, you can be so secure that you're out of business.
Okay.
It's like having a business and locking your door. You know nobody's gonna steal from you, but you're out of business. So it's always a balance between letting people in the door and keep them from getting stolen from.
You have to interact.
Yeah, so password's important. Access software, how do you get to your website? Are you using FTP? Well, you shouldn't be. You should be using SFTP. Okay, the S means Secure Socket Link, SSL, or SSH, one of those two. Or HTTPS, if you're using a file manager. You know, a file manager is where your website looks like an Explorer file thing, and you'll be able to interact with it like looks like the Explorer file manager. It has that same look, but it's your website. That would be through HTTPS. That's what we use because it tends to be more universal for people.
Is that the
Not every-
folders?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's the folders. That's what we use for our hosting because most non-geek people don't understand FTP, STFTP, and how to install all that, and it really becomes a problem. Whereas the file manager is very familiar. It looks like what you've been using all along on your own local machine. The last 2 are file permissions. Generally, your web hosting service will keep your permissions correct. That's what we do. We have a little tool that goes off like every 10 minutes and checks permissions on everything in the hosting block and everything in our hosting clients and makes sure all their permissions are right. Goes through checks all their permissions.
What are permissions?
Access to the file. Who can access your file? When on the web server, the only thing that should be able to access the file is the user. Okay, that's you.
Yeah.
Okay, well, if you leave the file permissions open to everybody, then anybody can open the file, anybody can edit it, anybody can delete it. So you don't experience that much on your own machine because guess what? It's you, and you've got this isolated world. But the minute you're dealing with the larger world, you have to make sure you limit access, and that's file permissions. This is generally handled for you, and the only reason I bring it up is every once in a while we'll have somebody who has their own web server, and if you have your own web server, which I guess none of you do, so it's not a problem. If you have your own web server, you need to be more conscious of that. But then you do, I guess, so don't worry about it. That's usually taken care of for you. And the last thing is your database. And again, if you're using a shared hosting service and you're using a hosting provider, the third one, that's usually taken care of for you. And I bring it up only in case somebody was in the audience that has their own machines and they're providing their own database, and they should make sure that they've secured their database. I mean, that's basically our job as a hosting provider, is to keep that secure. So those are the steps. And the ones that you have the most control of is the first 2 and the passwords. And to some degree the network in terms of making sure that you have some kind of firewall if you're going to be out in a public place. And make sure that your Wi-Fi at home is not unkeyed so that your neighbor can log in or somebody. There are people that drive down the street looking for open Wi-Fi. Oh, you're open. And away they go. They'll sit right in front of your house and use your internet. There's tools I can show you on my phone and everything that tells you where those Wi-Fi, open Wi-Fi things are. So they're easy to find. Okay, what can you do on your own WordPress site as you are working with your WordPress site? Okay, you have these vulnerability areas that you're going to need to keep an eye on. And we're going to talk about the procedure you'll use that will help you keep an eye on these. They are your plugins, themes, the core WordPress scripts, forms and comments, which I talked about earlier, and logins and passwords. Those are your areas of control. This is where you're going to manage things as you go through. So, first line of defense. Hopefully you've got this one as I've been talking. Get a backup. There are, if you go to the WordPress plugin install section, you all kind of familiar with where that is? No? Okay, click on your right, you click plugins, and when you go to the plugins, you click search, the search tab, and well, actually I'll show it to you. Go that way. That's the easiest way rather than wave my hands in the air.
Okay, good.
Okay.
And by the way, for your personal computer, these are inexpensive. You can back up your personal computer, back up your WordPress site. So if your personal computer crashes, you still have a backup.
Was that like an E drive?
It's just, it's a USB drive
Yeah?
that can connect directly to your computer, and you can either run a backup program to it, or you can copy files over to it.
Okay, this is one of the demo sites that we have that we play around with. This is totally a test, kind of a test blog. Okay, so we're going to go and we're going to log into this. Go to the WP login, and we're going to log in. This is what you would see when you're logging into your WordPress site. And you would click plugins, and you notice that this needs to be upgraded right here. This is what's going to show up at the top. I intentionally didn't upgrade this because I use it for videos and stuff, and I like to show people where that's at. It's up here. And you're going to click Add New, and you're going to see Search as one of your options up here. Click Search, type in Backup. Notice that I type it in so much that it's right there. And go off and search, and you notice that there are literally dozens of backup programs here that you can use. The one that I'm currently using the most is called Simple Backup, right here. I'm always looking for something simple and easy for our clients to use, and right now that's the one I've been installing for people. It's a nice one. It's got all the stars, so it's very popular too. So right now that's my recommendation. It's pretty easy to back up. We'll install it for you right now, just to show you how that goes. We'll install it, show you how easy it is to install. Here it's going through the installation process. We're going to activate the plugin. Then we're going to look in settings, simple backup. Here it is right here. Okay, we want to make sure we back up the database and the files. Those are the two you want to make sure you have checked. If you have a Windows machine, you might want to select zip. But if you have a Mac, you want to select tar-gz, okay? And then leave this at SQL, okay? You don't need to mess with that. And then once you've done that, make sure you save your settings, because if you don't do that, what you just did won't be saved. And then you wonder why nothing worked. Then you go clear down at the bottom, and you say create backup, and it goes off and and does all that, and there's your backup. See how easy that was. Now you just right-click those and save them to your save them to your machine.
That's saved up on their side or on the home side? Your
No,
home.
you have to now right-click those and do Save As. So you're now going to do,
You're going to download them
yeah.
to your
You're gonna
machine.
click- You're gonna click download, and you're gonna download, like so. Okay? I'm gonna cancel it. You need to download both of them. They come as a pair. This is your website and this is your database. You need to download both of those as a pair. And notice they've been date time stamped to match for you. So every time you do one, it's been date time stamped for you, when it was done, the exact number of milliseconds that day that it was done at, so that you can't overwrite them or get them confused.
Right.
What happens if you don't download it? It's still there, right?
Yeah, but if your site crashes, you'll lose the whole thing.
If it physically crashes.
Or somebody corrupts it.
No, someone
You
corrupts
can't get to it. I would never leave them sitting there if you expect.
If someone hacks the site, you're,
For disaster recovery, you need to have them. And then you need to have one of those little devices
Yeah.
attached to your computer and put it on that. That way your own machine
Plug
can
in.
crash, and you still have it. Just to show you how anal I am.
and me.
My machine has two of those attached to it. FireWire 800, they're piggyback. On one of them, I do a clone of my hard drive, which means my whole computer can crash. I can walk over to another Mac, plug in, and get back to working. I have my whole system cloned. That goes off twice a day. Clones my whole machine twice a day. Then I have Time Capsule, which comes with Mac. That goes off every 15 minutes. It backs up whatever I'm doing on the other one. So I have two of these backups going simultaneously. Okay.
Wow,
On top of that, I have the Time Machine, the Time Capsule thing up here, that you buy separately. It's kind of, it's got a 3 terabyte thing. It's also backing up everything every 15 minutes. So I'm really hating. But I will always be able to recover.
And offsite,
Well, it's at my home, but it's not in my office.
so when your house burns down, it's all gone.
Yes,
My
but
brother
at the
does
same
4
time-
backups and then carries them to work.
Yeah. But at the same time, all my code gets backed up to our server, which is offsite.
By the way, the servers are backing, we have a server that's remote, and then that server is backed up to a local server, and that's every 6 hours. That's all the code.
Yeah, so we have a complete copy of our hosting system on a remote server. So if that machine can blow up and nuclear bomb, and it can still recover your website, so.
Nobody will care, but we'll be recovered.
We can recover it, but there's no reason. Anyway, you know how.
So when you're doing these backups, the important thing is that you also have this separate device?
Yeah,
Or
because
otherwise it just doesn't really make any sense?
well, you'll probably be safe most of the time, but the separate device ensures that you have a copy on a machine, on a thing that you can take to another machine and plug in and still do it. So our computers crash or go bad on us or do something
Or
like
they're
that.
hacked?
Or they're hacked.
Okay.
And we always have something separate we can unplug and walk. On the machines that he's talking about that we back up to,
Yeah.
it has a remote drive sitting on top of it that's
Right.
also backing up that.
And it was one of these,
It has one of those sitting on it that's backing up that,
locally.
so that we can unplug it and take it over here and go and restore it. So that machine could crash, and we still have the backup. So it's redundancy. It's all a matter of redundancy.
So can I just ask this, I don't have my own website, I mean, I do, but
Yeah.
that's not what I'm using, so this is all new.
Right.
So, like with the listing software that I use, I back that up from time to time. And so is this the same where you back up your website and then 3 or 4 hours or 2 days or 3 days later then you get hacked? Would you have what you backed up, or would it have had to have been on one of those
Yeah,
external?
it depends on how often you backed up.
But would you have the last time that you backed it up? Even if someone hacked you 3 days later, you would have,
Right.
Theoretically, yes.
okay, just,
Okay, so we've installed your backup for you. There's no excuses now. I just showed you how to do it.
And you all remember, right?
Right, anyway, that's actually, in the plugin, there is a plugin ebook on WordPress plugins that goes through this installation process, so that's available also for you. Okay, so first line of defense is backups. Okay, we've covered that. Backup strategy. So this is when you should be backing up on your WordPress site. You should be backing up before and after every update or installation. Now you may not need to save those in a permanent way. That's just in case the plugin you just installed trashes your WordPress site. Okay, so you can recover from that. Before and after every edit or post that you make. Okay, before and then after. So you log into your site, you do a backup. Then you do your messing around and you post and you do this, and then before you leave, you back up one more time. And you noticed how fast it was, so it's not like a big deal. You just click backup. Okay? Then, once a month, and it may be that one of these is once a month, but once a month, make sure you have a clean backup that you save to your remote drive, and it's there, and it's in a safety deposit box or whatever, you know, that you really know it's there, okay? And do that once a quarter, too. And make sure that you save one of these that you have once a quarter, too, so that you can go back to those if you discover something happened. Because you may not discover that you had a problem until a week or two later. See, so you need to have something far enough back that you can go back to. Because you may not be able to go back to the one you did yesterday. That may be corrupted also. So you may have to step back a couple to get the clean one. And then, of course, label and store all backups off-site on a separate removal hard drive. So you just got through saying, yes.
Does system restore same as the backup? The computer automatically
No,
No,
sets?
no,
for Windows, no.
no.
Yeah, all that does is restore, it doesn't touch your data, it only restores the operating system. Data is what we're talking about
Yeah, we're
here.
talking about the data. Yeah. So there's your backup strategy. Okay, you put it up there on your little thing there. Now, how do you do plugins safely? What's safe plugin? Okay, safe plugin is these 5 little tools that you should have downloaded and on your WordPress site. You download these. These are plugins. You just type in plugin check in that little search window and you install that. You type in theme check and you install that. You type TAC, you install that. You type Tim Thumb vulnerability scanner, you install that. And you type and you install that. You get all these installed, and that's what they are right there. Those are them. So you download a plugin, and before you activate it, before you hit the activate button, you run this. It tells you if you're safe. Before you install that theme, you install it, but you don't activate it, you run this. Checks to make sure the theme is healthy and good and behaving itself. And then you run this guy also. It does an authenticity checker and make sure that the plugin is what it says it is, and it goes through. This one is probably the most user-friendly because if the theme's okay, it gives you a big green box that says passed. Nice and safe. Passed. You don't have to read all the hieroglyphics of the other two. These two here are a little geeky. This one's a little more user-friendly, so this is probably the one you want to use for themes. The Tim Thumb scanner is anytime you upload a plugin that does anything with images or uploading, you want to run that because this Tim Thumb is the name of a very commonly used tool for uploading and downloading files. A lot of plugins use it, and some of them are vulnerable to being hacked. And this guy goes through, checks for it, and replaces them with the current update for you automatically. Automatically fixes it. So you just run it, it says no problems, you're good. Run it, it says I fixed this, I fixed this, this, and this, good. It goes in and fixes it for you too. Automatic. And this last one is it's a suite, and it checks your entire site for every possible place that could get hacked. And does a long list. And if it gives you some red bars, then you better pay attention. Yes.
So these are all on the WordPress down the left-hand column there. When you go to plugins, you'll find these 5.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Just type in SUCRI, hit search, and it will give you that. And then you say install.
Hey, I've read about these bots where they, they sit there in the background, and then, when they need to do like, what do they call it, where they try to stop service by bombarding some computer?
Denial of service.
Yeah, denial of service attack, are you susceptible to, can those be hiding on your site and then be,
You could be one of the bots, right?
and will, if you use these gadgets that you're pointing to right here, would it detect them?
Within your WordPress site, but that's more on your computer. That's where you have to protect your site with
Well, that,
antivirus and anti-Trojan software.
but that's what I was asking about, cause like my site is on a hosted site, HostGator. I'm one of those shared things. Would they put it on that site? Would they put it on my WordPress site out at HostGator?
They might use your WordPress site, not for the denial of service attack. They would use your personal computer for that. They would use that for storage.
Is that what they typically do, and that for links to the porn sites?
They use it for storage and to run stuff. I have seen on one of our sites, it was actually a demo site they had. They didn't have one of those sites, they had a demo site. A whole program where that program they could execute and it would do all kinds of wild things. So, yeah, they could use your site for a lot of things that has nothing directly to do with WordPress. They just used WordPress as an entry point.
Very common for spam to be hiding in the WordPress plugins folder under a very strange looking name that nobody would see what it is.
The upload folder is common.
Right.
Where they'll stick it.
So if you run that stuff, it'll detect that kind of happy stuff?
Yeah, the last one especially will check for all of that. It will look for certain types of code that are red flags. And those and those things like exec and things like that are kind of bad commands in terms of it shouldn't really be part of a plugin. And if they're there, that means they're trying to do something bad.
If you don't approve comments, can those unapproved comments still cause damage?
Oh, yeah. The minute that comment comes at you, it can do damage, but there is a tool that you can use to fix that, and it comes right with WordPress. It's called Akismet. And you just need to activate it. Yeah, it's sitting right there in your
It's called what?
Akismet, A-K-I-S-M-E-T.
Is that this next slide that you're talking about?
A Kismet, huh?
Akismet, yeah.
Kismet.
Yeah, this guy right here.
Okay.
It's right there. You just have to activate it. Most people don't. They see it, they ignore it. That's what its job is. And then if you download this guy along with it, it uses Akismet to prevent spam injection, where they inject the code. It prevents that. So you put these two going together, and you'll protect yourself from what you were just talking about. And then this guy, anytime you want to have a form, you should use Fast Secure Contact Form. That's actually the name of it when you want to download it. And it will prevent SQL injection and code injection. Okay, so use those, and that will protect you from what you were just talking about.
So the obvious question to me is, why doesn't WordPress just automatically download all of these for you when you set up a site?
That's a good question.
That's a good question, but you gotta remember, WordPress.org is an open source free site.
Okay.
And that's why services like us exist, because that's what we do. That's our added value that we add when we do a site for people. We put those things in there. Yes.
I have a quick question. In your experience, which has probably been over a few years, right?
Yeah, since
Okay.
the 80s.
Okay, so how often would it be that somebody that was not a geek or a technophile would be able to single-handedly create a commerce site on their own? I mean, how possible is it? How many people would be able to create their own really
Nobody.
successful site on their own?
I'd say no.
All things considered, graphics, shopping carts, security,
It's hard.
content, management, how
Well, not
possible?
nobody, but it's hard.
Okay,
It depends
I mean,
on how involved you want to be. That's why we have the Sonic Web Tech service, because that way you can do like 80% of it or 70% of it. We can come in and fill in those little blanks for you and fix this and that. That allows us to fill in those places. That way you're not paying somebody to do it all. You're doing as much as you can, but you can then come in and have somebody. It's kind of like having an expert on call that can come in and do that one extra thing that gets you over the hump. And that's what that service is for, it's to
Right.
get you over that hump. And of course, that's why we do these presentations, to help make you aware of where those humps are, so that you can either, and then eBooks help you learn how to do it, and you can decide how much you want to do. And if you want to do none of it, then you should hire someone. If you want to do part of it, I mean, yeah, you can do it. You should at least be a well-informed consumer, at the very least,
Right.
okay?
So you're a good business person, you know that business, you've had to learn a number of things related to business marketing and all that. This is another skill,
Yeah.
and depends on how deep you want to get into it.
Yes.
You know, that previous slide where you had all those plugins, I mean, should you run those like when you're doing your backup, or you just do it when you put a new plug in, you do it once and you don't need to worry about it?
Right, yeah. And then you check the plug-in before you activate.
Okay, and so then when you get, if you do a new theme, then you check it, and then if it's okay, then you go, you don't need to worry about it.
Yeah, there's one other thing. The themes and the plugins themselves get upgraded. Don't forget to check your plugin directory and your themes, and it will tell you when you need an upgrade, just like John showed you with WordPress.
Yeah, there'll
Do your
each
upgrades.
plugin, if you go to the plugin thing, there'll be a little bar under each plugin saying, new version available. Click to update. Do your backup first, then click update. Click update, get all your updates, then do one more backup. So you go before and after backup. Because every once in a while, one of those upgrades is incompatible with the current version of WordPress, and you didn't know that, and they didn't warn you, and whoops. I had that happen. I had somebody who had a site with a theme, and they wanted their WordPress, they wanted to upgrade their WordPress. And so they called me and said, hey, can we, I said, well, you should do a backup for it. I said, okay. They didn't. And they upgraded their WordPress, and their website was gone. So then they called me up and said, and I said, did you do a backup? Well, we didn't think it was necessary. Well, I told you to. So then they paid me, then they had to pay me for about 5 hours of technical support. That's not cheap. To put it all back together, I had to go in and hand fix things that had broke to get it back in shape again. Really heavy, deep, geeky stuff, okay?
You guys
But I got
need
it back
stuff.
up. But I gotta go back up, you know? Yes.
Why do you have a 619 number?
Why do I have a 619 number?
Yeah.
Well, that number I got back when North County had 619. That's an old number.
There's another good reason. We found a lot more business people in the 619 area code.
Yeah, right.
There you go.
That's the other thing, yeah. I see 760, and all those North County guys, they don't ever do anything. If you have a 619 number, then you're considered, more professional. That's why we didn't upgrade that to 760. We left it at 619, because that's downtown San Diego.
We want to look professional.
Yeah. We try. Okay. Okay, here is your basic security strategy. This will be practically one of our last slides. Here's your whole strategy all wrapped up into a package. Follow the backup strategy, check all plugins and themes when you install them, regularly update all plugs, themes, and WordPress core, change your passwords periodically, general malware scanner, control spam and form injection using those other tools I showed you, and guess what? Your backup strategy. I can't say that too many times. Okay, you got to back up. If you have backups, we have a chance of getting you back up with minimal cost.
As you back up, you eliminate the backup before that backup?
No, you keep incremental.
You just keep
You
backup
should
one, backup
keep at
two,
least
backup three?
3 or 4 months of backups. At least.
Why?
Because you don't know when you got hacked and when you discovered it. You could have gotten hacked 4 weeks ago or 5 weeks ago. And you go back 1 week and it didn't fix it. You have to go back maybe 6 weeks to find the backup that fixes it.
Or there's something you changed and you decided, I didn't really want to change that after 4 weeks. You can go back to your backup and go, oh yeah, there it is. Put it back.
But anyway, we have found that you have to sometimes go back 4 or 5 weeks, 6 weeks to find the clean backup. Because people don't always discover that I've had people who discovered their site wasn't even up 2 or 3 weeks later because they weren't paying attention. Oh, you know, I discovered my site wasn't up, and we go back and look and, you know, it hasn't been up for weeks.
Well, it's like people, I don't know my phone number because I don't call myself. I don't know my site's up because I didn't visit it for a while.
You should be.
You should be.
So we get back to our questions. I think we covered all this. We talked about what do I do if I got hacked? How do I fix it? How do I recover? And how can it be repaired, prevented, or minimized? We covered all those things today. And I think we covered a lot of questions, but if you have any more, fire away.
You're talking a lot about websites, and that's what you guys do, right?
Well, he does actual personal machines too. I do mostly just web stuff. He does web stuff.
I'm more of a hardware person, but I also do some web stuff, but
So is WordPress what is part of when you pay somebody to do a website for you? Is that what they're using?
Not necessarily.
No.
You can do.
What other ones?
You can do like a classic kind of website, which is basic HTML.
Okay.
That's what's called a static website.
A static website.
Static website,
Okay.
and those are very good for some purposes. In your case, since you want to do e-commerce, you should be getting a shopping cart that can be used as a shopping cart that can be used as a content management system.
Right.
In other words,
Yes.
your core is your shopping cart.
Yes.
And then you want to build on top of that. So you should be using something like ZenCard or Press to Shop that then lets you build your website on top of the shopping cart. In other words,
Okay.
if I were just selling one or two things, then I would probably do WordPress and then add a little shopping cart
I
on
need
top
a
of
big
that.
one.
You need to turn that upside down and do a shopping cart.
And build on that with the
Right.
blog and all that.
Right?
So
You
what-
need to turn it upside down.
So what kind of graphics people do you have on your team?
Well, my daughter is, she's got her master's degree in art and graphic design. She does all that for the company.
So is it beautiful? And are you doing, our website important now to be, what do you call it, relative? So that they look good on the cell phone?
Oh, you mean what's called responsive?
Responsive, yes. Is that a big deal right
Depends
now?
on your market. Right.
it's becoming a big
It's
deal,
becoming more
depending on the
important
market.
because more and more of your users are on their cell phones and iPads.
Mm-hmm.
So it depends on your market. If you're selling farm equipment, well, it's not likely very many farmers are gonna be using their cell phone anymore. So,
I don't know, I would,
no, yeah, I'm born and raised on a dairy farm.
oh, okay,
I'm
so
a
you know.
farmer.
Okay,
You know, so it's lucky, I mean, I have customers that are farmers. I mean, Durling Nursery is one of my big customers. They're like the citrus grower for all of the southwestern United States. They've been my customer since the early 90s.
All that goes in there.
So this is formatted for phone.
yeah, and is
You web
that
to
you?
go, and
Huh?
this is an Android.
You mean
actually,
Eki?
And is that your
Oh, well,
site?
yeah.
No,
I
no.
know him,
It's
but
just a
he's
general.
retired.
Yeah.
But yeah, it depends on your market. If you're marketing to a younger group, absolutely.
What if you're marketing to a professional group? I would be thinking, I like professional and older because they have more money. It just works
We
works
like
better
them
for
too.
me.
Depends on the age, like my wife,
Yeah,
she uses a computer, she actually runs a lot of parts of her business, but she
Yeah.
doesn't like to use her cell phone that way because it's too tiny and little.
me either for shopping,
See?
but you have to
Yeah,
know
so-
how to,
Again, it's a demographics
Right.
question where I would say you should be heading kind of that way as the demographic starts migrating that way. As youngers get older, they will take those ways of operating with them into that age group. So, yeah, you should be heading that direction. I wouldn't say that it's absolutely a deal breaker right now if you're in the 40s and up group that you're selling to. But I would say if you're in the 30s and downs, it's an absolute must.
well, what if you're 30 to 50?
You gotta do both, I think.
Go ahead and
Yeah.
get
Then
them.
you need to start working that way.
And can't you give them the choice whether they want to view your content on,
That will automatically happen when they view it.
okay,
Yeah,
On
when they
the
bring up their
device.
phone and they look at it, it will It will look that way.
But did you have to set that up to begin with? Like,
Your site has to be built to handle it.
so on a
It's called
WordPress?
browser discovery. In
Okay,
other words, your server discovers what the client is, and then when it discovers the client, it sends the correct style sheets to it.
okay, but behind the scenes, are you creating more than one so that it looks good both ways? If
It
you're the-
depends on the system. Some systems are built to handle it totally seamlessly for you, and others you have to have.
Would it be double the work?
In some cases, that could be, but that's less likely the case if it's built right.
And
Like,
it-
for example, there's a plugin you can put into WordPress that
Okay,
automatically makes your WordPress site work on a phone, just automatically. It's a plugin. So you didn't have to do anything but just install it. And suddenly your WordPress site now works on an iPhone or Android.
okay, well, he's got a question.
Yes.
Let him
I looked at one of my sites yesterday on somebody else's computer, and my menu bar, which went across the top, went down like this.
Yeah, your menu bar is probably an unordered list, and the style sheet,
Why
the
did
style
it do
sheet
that?
that got downloaded wasn't set to handle that on that particular interface, so it did a default,
So something was wrong with that interface.
the style sheet.
On that computer.
No, the style sheet
On
was
my website.
on your
Right.
website. Your style sheet wasn't.
John's mentioning style sheets here. If you think of your website as style and then content, you can give them a
Yeah,
little
this
information
style
on
sheet
that.
is- There's two documents for every website, there's two documents. One document is your HTML, that's your
Okay.
content, and then you have another document that ends in .css, cascading style sheet, okay?
Yeah.
There are two documents. The style sheet document controls how it looks, and in that style sheet document, you would need to have code in there that detects that it's a phone or a small format and adjusts the style accordingly.
But this went onto a big monitor.
What was the resolution of that monitor?
I don't have a clue. It wasn't my computer. But
Gotcha.
Well, what was it, IE? That you were what browser were you using?
yeah, it was Internet Explorer. and
What version?
I don't know what version.
That has a lot to do with it. It was 6 or 5. Nobody supports it anymore, which means your style sheet probably didn't get read.
Uh,
Yeah, see.
Was
most
it a
people-
Windows XP computer possibly?
yeah.
Yeah, it could have been 6 or 5, and that's
Yeah,
the problem
and-
right there.
And, yeah, nobody writes to it
Okay.
anymore. And those have been abandoned by the
All right.
world.
Okay. Thank you.
How long have you been conducting this meetup? And like, would it be advantageous to go back? Would there be a lot to learn from looking at the previous classes so that I
Oh, yeah.
wouldn't be asking questions you've already answered before?
Yeah, plus we're going to repeat them.
Okay.
We're gonna repeat them, but yeah, you can go, we post the video and, the ebook in the discussion area. If you go to the discussion area, you'll see there'll be posts for each one of them, and there'll be a link to the video and the ebook there, so that you can go and watch them if you want.
Is WebTech Business on this? www.webtechbusiness, meetup.com
Yeah, well,
/webtech
that's how you always sign
business.
up. Meet up, WebTech Business, and you go hit discussion, and go to the discussion group, and that's where it's all posted. Okay, so you download that and view that, but then we also, during this next year, we're repeating all of these all over again. And we always add new ones as we go along, like this one here is new,
Right.
because I did a lot of security as part of some of the other, and then I realized that we really needed to devote one just to that, so I just created this. So this was like the first time out for this particular presentation.
Well, there's a lot to the security, isn't there?
Yeah, well, before it was part of the presentation, I realized that I wasn't able to cover it as much as, I mean, I've been screaming backup for years, you know.
Several years ago, I belonged to this Chamber of Commerce, and I seem to remember you guys being here. You have something to do with the Chamber?
Well, we're members, and
Yeah. And
We're
you're
involved.
always here. Yeah.
we're involved, and
Yeah.
try to help, and.
So this is joint effort with the Chamber of
Yeah,
Commerce
this
and
is-
with
this
our,
is- this is
they're one of the,
jointly sponsored by the Chamber of Commerce. They provide a facility, and it's very nice.
And is this for SEO? Is that like the, I'm just kind of forgetting, so the meetup, the category, would it be SEO?
Yeah, we do SEO, matter of fact, we have
Or
several.
internet marketing,
Yeah,
or
we
Yep.
websites?
we have presentations for all of those. If
Okay,
you go in the meetup and go to past ones, you'll see all the past ones we do.
okay.
And if you were particularly fond of one, just let me know.
Shopping carts, you were interested in shopping
I
carts
do a
as well,
whole
yeah?
2 or 3 presentation on e-commerce and shopping carts, and all about shopping carts and how to select one, and what, I do a whole series of those.
So do you pick one that you like the best?
No, we just try to look and see, this was a series of 4 presentations on WordPress, and now that's what we're gonna talk about afterwards here, is try to see what we're going to do next. Are we go back to SEO and those sort of things next, and then maybe do the e-commerce some more, and then come back to the WordPress, and every time I do them, I go and I completely update them. In other words,
Well, that's nice.
I go back and I completely research everything and make sure what's happening today. So and then I redo the ebooks, update them. So every time I do the presentation, I redo the ebook, I redo the video, everything gets upgraded,
So
just
are
like your software.
So you're interested in internet marketing, or your clients, are they interested in selling stuff?
Oh, yeah.
Could I ask you, I'm wondering, I'm not all that enchanted with Amazon, but I know that everybody else in the world is. And so, eBay, I know eBay kind of has a bad name. I've done real well with it. Amazon is sort of like taken over the world, right? And the service aspect is really great for buyers, not so sure how it is for sellers.
No.
And then there's people with their own website selling stuff. Is it hard to compete yourself against Amazon? Should you just join up with them? Or is there still a chance for someone to be independent? Or are you really independent with Amazon? You just have to follow a bunch of rules.
Yeah, in some cases, you can do a little of both. You have your own
I can give you
independent
some
thing and then
answers,
sell
yeah.
some through Amazon to create a following. Yeah, I think a broad approach might be best, depending again on what you're doing and how much of a niche you can create for yourself. If you're doing it on your own, you're gonna have to get really serious about all the SEO issues
Right.
and what are called web strategist kinds of things.
Yeah.
And you're gonna have to really get into that, because you can't piggyback onto Amazon if you were doing Amazon. But of course, then, if you're not doing Amazon, then you're free to do a lot of other things that Amazon lets you do. So it's a mixed blessing, and you have to think of the balance.
The difference between Amazon and eBay is you pay eBay, but Amazon pays you. But the problem is with Amazon, the person has to buy right then. Because,
Well, that's not a problem.
no, it is a problem, because a lot of people, they don't buy right then, they come back later to buy. And they come back later to buy, you're not gonna get it.
Are you talking about affiliate marketing?
Yeah, that's with Amazon, that's what she's talking about.
They rotate who gets presented first.
Right.
If there are 10 people selling your product, doesn't mean you're always gonna be on the top.
Right.
So if they come back, they may buy it from somebody else, because
Right,
that's who gets
and
it top.
that sounds to me the more generic approach, and I think I don't need to be the first one. It's like,
Well, that's why
You're not gonna
you
get the
can do both. You
Yeah.
can have your own site, and then you can be selling through Amazon too.
Right.
To generate that traffic, and then once that person buys from you, then you have the opportunity to try to market to them.
with the opt-in, or you have their email address, right? They're still not able to take that away from you
Right.
on any of these shopping sites,
So
right?
then, yeah, you can start marketing to them a little more and get them to come to your site, and at your site, you need to have things that will attract them and
Right.
engage them. You need to be educating them, you need to be providing resources.
Blogging
And
and
that's
Pinteresting
resources,
and.
yeah, resources, yes. You need to be providing things that people like, companies that provide resources.
Value.
Yeah, that extra free value that makes
Right,
them.
I'm working big on that. This year I joined
And that's why we're doing this, we're giving you free value,
so,
eBooks and all of this stuff, and that's why we do this. So this is part of that, I mean, it's a little more physical, but we do it online too.
okay.
So that's all part of the process.
Well, it was a great meetup.
So, go and check our suite of sites. You'll see a tremendous amount of materials that you can use, but you'll also see a lot of opportunities to buy from us.
Yes. Okay, we have to pack up and be out by 4 o'clock.
Thank you so much.
I have to start being taken apart, but you can still talk to me.
Is your information on the table over here?
Yeah, there's some information on different things. We have Ask a Web Tech Pro, where if you have a quick question, you can get an answer for free. We have Sonic Web Tech, so that, about that. We also have, if you're doing PayPal, I'm a certified PayPal developer, so, you can help with your PayPal.